My view on leadership derives from Bertrand Russell, who said that only fools think they're always right. A wise person is always asking where they're wrong. And that, for me, is the most critical thing about leadership. The leadership and leaders need to have enough confidence in themselves to foster the environment where they are always questioned. Foster the environment in which your team can speak up and feels that they must speak up if they think you are wrong.
My name's Andrew MacLeod and I'm an Australian. I spent many years in the 1990s working in some of the world's most dodgy parts. Yugoslavia, Rwanda, and countries ending in Stan that don't have an up-to-date Lonely Planet. And from those experiences I've drawn many lessons on leadership. I moved from the non-for-profit sector in the 2000s into the corporate world and discovered that the only way to sustainably bring people out of poverty is through employment, and employment can only be guaranteed if you have profitability. So what I speak on and what I like to teach people is this interface between corporate and community and improving profitability and improving community outcomes at the same time. My leadership speeches concentrate on 6 or 7 key lessons learned from the Pakistan earthquake response or the Rwandan genocide, and apply these lessons not only to the non-for-profit world but to the for-profit world. Great lessons in life.
In the Pakistan earthquake relief, let me tell you what we were faced with. In 90 seconds, a magnitude 7.6 earthquake destroyed 500,000 homes, made 3.5 million people homeless. 8,000 kilometres of roads were destroyed, 800 hospitals and schools. 75,000 people were killed, 140,000 people injured, 6 weeks before a Himalayan winter was about to dump 20 feet of snow on top of all of these people. Added to that, most of the deaths and injuries occurred in Kashmir, a disputed territory between India and Pakistan, 2 nuclear-armed powers technically at war. Lashkar-e-Taiba, one of the world's greatest terrorist organisations, ran most of the villages and towns around Kashmir. You could spend years analysing that problem before you did anything. But the truth is, you had 6 weeks to be able to provide the necessary food and supplies to keep 3.5 million people alive.
In life, there are highs and there are lows. And my life has given me the experience of highs that normal people don't have and lows that normal people don't have. How would you feel walking into a church in Yathurama in Rwanda with 3,500 human corpses at your feet and a baby's head on top staring at you and asking, why did you let this happen?
So let's start off with a small issue for the beginning of a Saturday, and that is bringing the world out of poverty. Is development aid working? And I want to start off with what we call the swimming pool moment. And what is the swimming pool moment? Well, I used to be a competitive swimmer, as was the junior foreign affairs minister in Pakistan. So when I was in Islamabad working for the United Nations, we used to train together, and we got to the end of the pool one morning and I looked at him and I said, why are you involved in politics? And he looked at me and he said, I'm involved in politics for the same reason as everybody else. I'm here to protect my family's land interest. And in there lies a problem. In there lies a big failure in the West, because we look at our governments, Labor or Liberal, and we assume they're trying to do the best thing by the people, because if they don't, they get tossed out at the next election. And we transpose that assumption onto other governments and deliver foreign aid through other governments because we assume that they're wanting to do the best thing for the people as well.
There is a great challenge happening in the world today as companies move into more and more countries, into cultures that are different from their own. And the great challenge for many of our senior management is how do we adjust the footprint of our corporations in these very different communities and very different cultures. The challenge is to maintain profitability over the long term. And it's in the business interest of many companies to help communities develop so they can become the marketplace, but also the employee marketplace for the future. And the challenge for many of our senior executives is to step out of what they know. So how do we train them? How do we coach them? How do we bring people on board in this journey that a corporation needs to as a corporation expands?
Well, analyst Andrew MacLeod has worked with the UN and the Centre for Strategic International Studies. Andrew, is this super agency a super idea or not?
Look, I don't think the agency makes any difference at all to whether we're solving the problem.
Current policy is in many ways putting a band-aid over the wound, but it's not dealing with the wound.
Facilitation is an important task, and sometimes it is important for senior management teams to bring in external people. And external people can bring out from each of the leaders you have around a table issues and challenges that perhaps they're a bit quiet or a bit reluctant to bring in an internal-only meeting. When I facilitate senior meetings, I make sure that we bring everyone's idea onto the table, so all executives can look at these ideas and decide which is the best way forward.
Think about some of the major conflicts and natural disasters that have happened in the last 20 years. And chances are Andrew MacLeod was there at the front line, not as a soldier, but in a role as important, working for such organisations as the United Nations and the International Red Cross. It was a role that he wanted to fill since before leaving university. And finally, in 1996, he was given a mission to carry out aid work during the violent conflicts over the former Yugoslavia. It was here he witnessed for the first time the tragedy that comes with war.
But as you crossed into Bosnia and you moved further down closer to Sarajevo, the pockmarks turned into destroyed houses, turned into fields of landmines, and then driving into Sarajevo back then, the soccer fields that had been turned into graveyards, the headstones everywhere.
One of the greatest challenges facing human resources managers today is retention and recruitment of high-quality staff. How do you motivate your new graduates? How do you motivate your mid-level managers to stay in your company for the long term? How do you save those retraining and re-recruitment costs? Well, one is to motivate your own teams about the social outcomes as well as the financial outcomes that your corporation is doing in its day-to-day core profitable business. One of the services I can offer your teams is to give them a broader exposure to global events and show them how their day-to-day work is actually doing good and why it is they should stay in the company that they currently are.
Thank God for men like Andrew, Joe, I would say.
And we all know that we feel better when we're able to help others. And you, Andrew, have helped countless people in the most difficult circumstances. But we now, as a country, need to help you and your fellow aid workers, and hopefully that starts today. So you've written a book.
A wonderful book called A Life Half Lived, and what a life it has been.
So far.
Yeah, and a fabulous read, so that's available at all good bookstores. Andrew, it is such an honour to have you with us this morning. Thank you so much for your passion and enthusiasm and the difference that you're making.
Thank you,
Joe, as always, thanks for coming along.